Good evening, one and all. Welcome to another show. I'm going to be reviewing a Clubhouse debates video. I should say this video featuring Darth Dawkins shenanigans is courtesy of Clubhouse debates. He did, I think he has a discussion with two different people in here. I have not seen the entire thing. I've seen most of it, but I haven't seen the tail end of it when he's talking with someone named Joe. Just Joe. So there's not really a lot of context here to set up. No big drama. This is Darth back in his usual form, running his usual script on a couple new people, I think. I don't know that he's talked to either of these guys before in the past. I think this is their first time with him, as far as I can tell. And, Darth usually does this thing on Clubhouse where he starts up a room and then, gives some kind of, baiting title, like all atheists are... You're a scumbag atheist if you don't talk to me, and you're probably a scumbag atheist when you do. That kind of stuff, And so, lying in wait like a trapdoor spider. And, that's pretty much the only context here. So, which is kind of refreshing. No real drama here. I mean, other than the drama that, Darth comes pre-installed with. No real context. We'll just get into this, see what he runs in this. I thought this one was funny because I rewatched the beginning like 2 or 3 times to figure out what he was doing in terms of I'm pretty sure that Darth screws up asking a basic question. And it's really interesting with this guy, like how quickly he gets triggered. So with that being said, I will go through the live chats to say hello to people here in the live chat that are here watching live. But first we'll do that snazzy Bossa Nova intro and then get started. All right, very good. So let me say hello to a few people that are here. Alex Baptista, I think you were first. So congratulations, or condolences, whichever. Depends on how you take this particular show. Good to see you. J.L. Warren from Bridge the Divide, good to see you. Spooky, always good to see you. P. Barnes, good to see you. I'm not going to say your name, but I think you're Boot the Door, if I remember right. 8:30 to Awesome, good to see you. Russ Wren, good morning to you. I know it's very early, it's very late or extremely early where you're at. So thank you for being here. Let's see here. John Rapp. Apologies, you hate Will Ferrell. That's fine. But I use that because of the Strategery reference that Darth makes later on. So, Jason Jacoby, very good to see you. I think that's about it so far. Not to say that that's not enough. Pinworm, Germania, Gur, what are you doing here? Well, looky what we have here. That's my variation on that. You're not supposed to use that. True, good to see you. Sick, good to see you. All right. JC Nat is also here. Secular Pagan Mum, also good to see you. Peter Guns, Space Lord, Nadimos, very good to see you. Leo is here. Good to see you, Leo. All right, and I think that's just about it. Okay. That's Stony Morbucks. Don't know that I've seen your username. Not sure if I know you, but welcome to the show. And thanks for being here for a live one. Let's see. Some pre-sub douche commented on my comment on one of Tom's videos from almost a year ago. I'd said not to abuse people. Controversial for sure. I'm wondering if it's that Lord of Light or Light of something guy. Is that who it is, Space Lord? Because somebody had been doing that recently with my videos, kind of going through and watching the archives, which I don't mind, certainly, which was kind of cool. But I started getting notifications from these, and I was seeing all these old thumbnails of mine, and they were posting comments on it, and they were quite critical of my stuff, which is fine, but. Some of them were kind of like a little bit baiting, Long-time listener, first-time commentator. Well, it's good to have you here. Thank you for showing up. Yeah, OMG, yes, insufferable. Okay, it might be the same guy. I think that same person, if it is the same person, if it is the same user, was doing the same thing, I think, with MathPick. MathPick started complaining about it. I'm like, oh, and he started talking about the avatar, and I'm like, yeah, that's the one. They've been in mine too. So hey, I appreciate the views, and the comments help too. So I think I only really had time to respond to like one or two of them. They commented a lot. Anyway, let me shrink myself down. Like I said, for anybody joining late, not too much context to set up here. This is just Darth in his normal run of things. So here we go. This is going to be, starting off, it's Darth versus a guy named Piper, and then he kicks him. There's no spoiler there. That's how that's part of the routine. And then he goes on to, I think it's more or less the second half of the video is him going to be talking to someone named Joe. So here we go. And Derek Lee occasionally pipes in, but, you know, as usual, Darth tends to overtalk him and interrupt Derek a lot. So, as usual, same rules apply. If I'm not coming through okay or clearly, or especially if the video is not playing sound, definitely let me know. But it looks like everything is okay. No one's yelling at me yet from the side chat, so I think everything's fine. All right, here we go.
Sophistry in a deceptive way. It's like, and he can't not know what you're talking about, Darth, because he's been in rooms where we talk, and he was in a.
Of course, I've dealt with him before. He's one of the sophists. Okay.
Man.
Come on up, Piper. Let's see if you can have a conversation and not troll like you do in other rooms.
Yeah, sounds like a warm welcome, right? I mean, way to go, Raid. A guy with an insecticide label for an avatar, right? Like, you know, and he's using it on the insects, which are the atheists. Yeah, cute. John Raps, I'd like to suggest no one use Ding Dong's screen name. I think it's offensive to both Richard and Vader. Yeah, it's interesting because somebody told, I think it was Pat Voss. I had a conversation for the first time with Pat Voss on Clubhouse. And I think he's been doing this for a while, if not on Clubhouse, but in other areas. And he said something like that. He didn't really like using Darth Dawkins because he did have some respect for Richard Dawkins, at least as a scientist and as a writer. And he's like, you know, it just seems like an insult to an otherwise intelligent person, even if I disagree with him on certain things. Oh, yeah, okay, that's fine. But at the same time, another acquaintance of mine, friend of mine, Michael, the Canadian atheist, his thing is like, no, I don't like calling him Darth because Darth Vader is my favorite Star Wars character, and it just seems like an affront to him. So, yeah. I mean, you know, at least the one person that, like, and I've mentioned this before, that should have been really worried, should have been really affronted by this, was Taylor Hicks. He kept using Taylor Hicks's picture as his avatar because a long time ago he described himself, even though as far as I know he's never appeared on camera, as looking like an older Taylor Hicks, and so yeah, it was odd. But now he's just using the red can. I wonder if he'll ever go back to the Dunkin' Donuts themed Dunkin' Atheism thing. I don't know. We'll see.
Do you have the balls?
Do you have the balls?
No, I didn't think you did. Come on up. Good. Now let's see if we can have an adult interaction, if you are indeed an adult, and answer some simple questions about atheism. Can you do that?
Sure.
Good. Why are you an atheist?
I'm an atheist because I believe gods don't exist.
This will be key, right? This answer, for at least a little bit. Thank you, Pinworm. Now that song is going to be stuck in my head. Was that Monster Magnet that did that song? Thanks, Ben. It's going to be stuck. Okay. Okay, so Dart just asked Piper, you know, why are you an atheist? And Piper's like, why am I an atheist? Well, because I don't believe gods exist. Or I don't believe a God exists.
Okay, that's a redundancy.
Oh, so
Okay.
you just want an argument?
Yeah, no. Piper, listen. There's nobody else here. Okay, you don't have to play games. How old are you, Piper?
24.
Okay, I'm 61. Your answer, there's nobody else here. I'm not playing to an audience. What you just said was profoundly stupid. Okay? Okay. I already know what the definition of atheism is. All you did was offer a definition of atheism that I already agree with. You didn't tell me why you believe there are no gods.
So you just want my argument?
Then why did you ask him if he was an atheist? You didn't tell me why there aren't any gods. That's a different. Like I don't know how many times I've brought this up in videos that I've done. Like asking somebody why they're an atheist, they're just going to tell you what why they're identified that way, right? They're identified as why am I an atheist? Well, I guess the reason why I'm an atheist, like, or if are you asking why was I motivated to join atheists? Well, it's because I heard they had great orgies, right? Like, I mean, this is just this is on Darth, but watch him just like pin all the blame of any kind of miscommunication here on Piper, like right out of the gate.
Hey, you're a 26-year-old young man, old enough to fight in war for your country. I ask you why you are an atheist, and all you do is you give me a definition of atheism.
So you want my argument?
Listen, you're not getting what I'm saying to you, are you? Okay.
Yeah, I'm not, honestly.
Okay.
No, yeah.
I ask you, why are you an atheist?
Right.
What do? You give me a definition of an atheist.
But part of the reason why somebody's an atheist is included in the definition of an atheist. An atheist is someone who does not believe in a God, doesn't believe that a God exists. And that's also the reason, that's one of the reasons why somebody's an atheist, because they don't believe that a God exists or gods exist. So it's not an inaccurate answer to his question, right?
Do you see what you did wrong?
No.
Not really. But if you want my argument, I can give it.
Whoa. You're 26 years old?
Notice this, right? He asked him how old he was, and he told him that he was 24.
Okay. Yeah. I ask you, why are you an atheist? All you do is you give me a definition of atheism.
So you want my argument?
Listen, you're not getting what I'm saying to you, are you? Okay.
Yeah, I'm not, honestly.
Okay. Yeah. I ask you, why are you an atheist? And what do? You give me a definition of an atheist. Do you see what you did wrong?
Not really. But if you want my argument, I can give it.
Whoa. You're 26 years old. You see, now I'm beginning to believe that.
Did we miss that part?
24.
There it is. There
Okay.
it is. I don't know if I skipped
so you
over
just want
that.
an argument?
Yeah, no.
Okay.
Piper, listen. There's nobody else here. Okay, you don't have to play games. How old are you, Piper?
24.
I'm 24. Said it clearly.
Okay, I'm 61.
Not really. But if you want my argument, I can give it.
Whoa. You're 26 years old.
Keep an eye on that. Right? Like, he just heard how old he was. He just heard that he was 24. You're 26 years old? Incredulously, like.
See, now I'm beginning to believe that you're trolling. Okay.
Okay.
Right? Or you're just dumb.
Okay.
Oh.
Okay. If you have
It's one of the two, right? You're either trolling or you're stupid, right? You're lying to me or you're an idiot, right? It can't be that Darth's misunderstanding something, or Darth's asking stupid questions, or Darth's asking a really vanilla question, and for some strange reason, Piper's not reading his mind and providing him with an argument for the non-existence of God, which, oddly enough, when Piper clued into the fact that Darth is automatically like trying to slam on the brakes on the conversation when he gives the definition of an atheist as his answer for why he's an atheist, he quickly asks Darth, at least twice, "Oh, do you want an argument?" And Darth's like, "Oh, hold the brakes, or hold the phone there." I started to mix up a couple metaphors there. Hold the phone. I'm not done trash talking you yet. I think I have some pretty good examples of how I can talk about how stupid I think that you look, right? I mean, this is a really good example of a conversation from Darth where Darth goes in with that with. I mean, there are times when he puts on a pretense of being charitable, but in this one, he's run right out of the gates. Like, no, I'm just here to call you stupid. You're either you're a stupid lying liar who lies, stupid.
ask, why are you a Republican?
Uh-huh.
Why are you a Giants fan? Whatever. Just giving the
Just
definition of Republican doesn't explain why you're a Republican.
Yeah, but actually, when somebody says, "Why are you a Republican?" part of the definition of a Republican is that a Republican is someone who believes in, say, conservative American traditions and laissez-faire government, limited government, something like that, right? You start describing the Republican Party platform, right? Part of their reasons for being a Republican is also part of the definition of being Republican. So it's the same thing as being a Giants fan, right? Why are you a Giants fan? because I heart the Giants. Well, that's just a definition of a Giants fan. Yeah, I like the Giants. Therefore, I'm a fan. That's my reason for it, right? It's kind of built into the thing that I identify as, right? When Piper answered, like, why are you an atheist? Because I don't believe God is real, or I don't believe in the existence of gods. That's it, right? Like, he passed the test. It's almost as if Darth had to make this more difficult because Piper didn't give him I lack belief in God. Like, maybe that's what Darth was hoping for, so he could do that. You could just like spin him up into the lacktheism kind of thing, and then leave him twisting in the wind for a while. But when Piper's like, yeah, I'm an atheist because I believe gods don't exist. Oh, what the hell does that mean? What do you mean? Don't tell me, tell me what motivated you to become a member of the Republican Party. Well, I heard that if your kink is orgies with elderly men and cocaine, the Republican Party might be a good fit. Wink, finger gun, Jesus, Darth. Yeah, I became an atheist because of the sex, drugs, and rock and roll.
Okay.
Okay.
Do you understand that what you did was not answer the question?
Sure.
All right. Now, was that on purpose?
To answer your question, Kerr, have I ever seen Dee Dee be somewhat nice to an atheist? Not consistently, like not for the duration of an entire conversation, unless that atheist really confounded him, or like there's one guy I was asked multiple times to do a review of. He's not. I don't think he's an atheist. I think he's like a deist or something like that. But his name is Mike Fall, and there's a video of him from a few years back, and he was kind of this. I tried looking him up. He was a YouTuber. I think he was in a lot of these rooms and stuff. But I think he was somebody that had kind of a. I don't know if it was a standard take on kind of paraconsistent logic, right? And he could talk circles around Darth, right? And there's this video where the video has Darth so quiet, so meek during the entire thing that people thought that it was selectively edited because they were just like, there's no way that this is Darth in this conversation unless, if this was recorded live, then Darth was like under the influence of heavy-duty tranquilizers or something because he should be losing his mind. So the only person that I've seen that he's kind of come close to was this guy. And this guy kind of abuses him. So if that video is legit, that's probably the closest one. There have been a few where he's been kind of cordial to, but only in that Darth way, where he'll be cordial from the beginning and then blow it up by the end, or he'll start off kind of hot and then the person will throw him a couple curveballs and then he'll kind of calm down, right? Or the ones that go really quiet, and for whatever reason, I don't know if it's the tone of their voice or whatever, he backs off them, right? So it's a combination of like people that scare him or people that are doormats, or oddly, I think what would be really weird is a doormat that scared him. You'd probably get the most cordial version of Darth Dawkins. But no, somewhat nice. Christopher Mowdy. He was kind of nice to Christopher Mowdy. But I don't know if he was nice to Christopher Mowdy on camera, like while they were live. Like from what I understand, he was like, hey, remember that time you and I had a conversation about Jersey and Taylor hams and stuff like that? But then when they were on live before that, he was just like going after him, because he was a degenerate non-believer kind of thing. So yeah, I know of instances where he's been cordial with people. Nate Brody, from Nate the Lawyer, he said he's had conversations with Darth Dawkins. I think he did. He's had conversations with him off air, and they were kind of cordial, right? But there wasn't an audience to broadcast to. So, take that for what it's worth.
Or was that just an incompetent response?
I guess it was just an incompetent response.
Yeah, okay. So let's start all over.
Okay.
How is it that you have determined that there are no gods, or more specifically, that there is no creator God?
Yeah, so I think I've given you my argument before, right? Which is specifically actually tailored to how you conceive of God. You conceive of God as what is ultimate in a mind, right?
I'm still waiting.
Well, I'm giving you my justification now.
You haven't given me one.
Well, I'm in the process, right?
You made a reference to some prior
see,
conversation. I'm waiting.
Yeah, I just want to see if we agree on what God is. God is what is ultimate in a mind.
Also love that he takes the time to interview somebody, to interrupt somebody, and then becomes increasingly more impatient because he's thrown them off track. And I'm waiting. Hurry up. Hurry. Somebody can get through that faster if you don't interject, bullshit into the middle of it.
Mind, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So I take a mind to be something like conscious experience, right? And I don't think conscious experience can be ultimate because conscious experience requires something to be experienced.
Yeah, that was really bad. So in other words, one cannot be entirely self-conscious of themselves.
I'm not sure what that even means.
I mean, really? Look,
No, yeah.
do you think I've been doing this for 10 to 12 years? Okay.
10 to 12.
Now, do you think I've heard more than my fair share of lame responses?
I mean, do you have a counter argument?
Okay. When I ask a question, I'm as serious as a heart attack when I ask a question.
So what?
And I'm looking for a response.
Okay, so does Darth think he's entitled to a response? Like directly in proportion to how serious he is about the question he's asking? Like, how does that follow? When I ask a question, I'm as serious as a stroke. And I expect an answer. I demand the truth. Like, okay, but I don't care how serious you are about asking a question. If you ask stupid questions, you'll probably get stupid answers. Unlike a lot of people, I do think that there are stupid questions. Mostly because the questions themselves aren't bad. It's like the expectation of the person asking it. Like when you say, hey, why are you an atheist? And the person gives an answer that is appropriate because I don't think gods exist. No. Wrong. Not what I'm looking for. Like that is an answer and it fits you. It does satisfy the question. If it doesn't satisfy what you meant to say, maybe change your question. Ding dong.
Do you think I've heard more than my fair share of lame responses that are simply deployed as a diversionary tactic?
Not only has Darth heard those lame responses, he's been responsible for a few of them himself in the last 10 to 12 years.
Sure.
And in those 10 to 12 years, he has gone from the age 58 to 61. Math.
One of them is, well, I don't even know what that would mean. Do you know how many times I've heard that silly response?
I'm just asking you to clarify.
Sir, you mean somebody can't be self-conscious of themselves?
Okay, so now he's going to start engaging the argument, but I love that thing. How did he put that? What did he say?
Yeah,
that's not an tactic.
Sure.
One of them is, well, I don't even know what that would mean. Do you know how many times I've heard that silly response?
I'm just asking.
Okay, if you are engaging in conversations for a decade plus, and you keep hearing people say, I don't know what you mean, I don't know what that even means, what could you possibly mean, my God, man, where did you read that, etc., you might need to reassess how you're approaching topics with strangers. Just a suggestion, right? Like him. I like how him saying this. Like, do you know how many times I have been inflicted with that incredibly persecutorial question? You know, they just constantly asking me, "Explain yourself, sir. Can you do that again? Could you give me a better? Could you clarify? Like, who the hell do these people think they are? Asking, like, I gave circumspect, clear responses, right? Not gobbledygook. I could have given them all the gobbledygook." Oh, Darth. How did he make it 10 to 12 years?
You to clarify.
Sir, you mean somebody can't be self-conscious of themselves?
Yeah,
that's not an experience that you're self-conscious of yourself?
Yeah, just clarify what that
means.
Is
is being self-conscious of something. Is that an experience?
Self-conscious of something?
Yeah. If somebody is conscious of something, is that
Yes,
an experience?
that's experience.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, how about that something is yourself?
Right. Okay.
So you have to spell out what that means for me.
Okay. We're not playing this little game. Okay. You are doing
You don't want to
precisely
clarify?
what the atheists do. Listen to me. Listen, Mr. 26-year-old little boy.
24. He is 24. He said he was 24. You said he's 26. Like you just added 2 years to his age. But just like you've been doing this for 10 to 12 years, right? I guess it's 10 plus 2, right? Just like Piper here is 24 plus 2. Darth has said many times when people give an explanation, he said, what does that mean? Can you explain it without philosophy-speak? He does that all the time. Yeah, exactly. Exactly, right? So how many people has he talked to over the past 10 to 12 years where he's asked, can you do this without the gobbledygook? How many times has he repeatedly told the same person that that they're either a dunce, a drunk, a delinquent, the usual kind of stuff?
So you don't want to clarify.
Listen. I don't want to have to kick you. Okay.
Okay.
You're wasting my time with the same childish atheist trolling tactic. It's more in the form of passive aggressiveness.
Oh, he's getting into some psychology here. Warren, gotta admit, circumspect sounds too similar to circumcised. Just wait. He actually picks a vocabulary term a little bit coming up here pretty quick. That every time he says it, it proves to me how immature I am. I think everyone will guess it when they hear it.
Then it is blatant trolling. Now, so in other words, God cannot exist because you have a particular belief. Why does it follow that God can only exist if you have a particular belief?
I don't think that's the argument I gave you.
Okay, now, you're making a statement, you're making a universal dictum, and using that universal dictum as a negator for God, right?
What was the universal dictum?
Is God or not God a universal dictum?
Dictum? Sorry. Universal dictum. Please pick another word. Wilberforce, just a pro tip from an English teacher. Univocal simply means unambiguous, which applies to literally nothing Darth or other precepts say. Yep. Agreed.
Okay.
So I'm saying not God. Okay.
Okay,
But
so let's slow down. Slow down.
All right.
God or not God, regardless of how it may be expressed, both God and not God are a universal dictum. Are we agreed on that?
Dictum.
We're agreed on that.
What you are expressing to me is a universal dictum that is a negator for another universal dictum, which is God.
Okay.
Right? Is that correct?
Can one posit a circumspect dictum? I swear. If I were inclined to just hatch out sock accounts, I think circumspect dictum it has made it to the top of the list of ones I would use.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, how are you able in a not God world to instantiate any universal dictum?
To instantiate a universal dictum?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That it is the case. That something
dictum.
is the case. Yeah.
Yeah, I just take universal
Are you
dictums.
capable in a not God world to defend or instantiate how any universal declaration is true?
Yeah, so I would just take universal declarations to be kinds of propositions, right?
No. Listen.
I don't see how God is required for.
Listen to me. You're giving me the typical response of the sophist atheist. You're not addressing the question. When you sit there going, I take it to be. Listen, I wasn't born yesterday. Okay. I'm more than double your age. Your strategery here is not fooling me.
Your strategery. So when I first heard this, I thought it sounded familiar, and then when I was getting ready to put this together, I looked it up, and I'm like, well, how was he? What is he doing there? Because he said it so quickly. I'm like, did he really just like slaughter the word strategy? Did he really get it that wrong? But when I looked it up, so there is a reference to this. This is a weird bit of history. There was an SNL skit, and Will Ferrell played George W. Bush in a debate. I think it was Will Ferrell, and I can't remember who played Al Gore, but it was the Bush-Gore debates. And they when they wrote it in there, they had one of his mispronounced words. What do they call that? A malapropism. And they kind of made it up for him. Bush didn't actually say it, but it was strategery. And apparently it caught on with some of the staffers in the Bush administration, and they started using the word in kind of a self-deprecating way. And they had certain meetings and stuff that they would call strategery sessions and things like that, right? So this was a thing. Apparently, because it had gotten kind of popular there, other people that were in like right-wing circles started kind of using it, and I think it was kind of popular for a while amongst ditto heads, aka Rush Limbaugh fans, of which Darth counts himself as a big Rush Limbaugh fan. God rest him. So that's why. So I'm not making fun of Darth because well, I would be making fun of Darth if he actually did like say the word strategery, and he didn't mean to. But he's probably used that word kind of like tongue in cheek many times, and so I don't know if he just slipped into it or if he did it intentionally or whatever. But I think that's where it comes from. It's just this old kind of tired SNL kind of joke. So I'll stop boring you guys now.
I don't care
Right.
when you go, well, I take it to be. Okay?
Yeah.
You are invoking a universal dictum, a universal declaration. Now, how can you establish that it is the case for any universal dictum?
Dictum, yeah, a dictum. So again, this is more of the same kind of thing where it just kind of sounds like, I don't know if Darth is getting to a point where his little spiel is sort of like resembling, if he really is mistaking the map for the place, or if it just sounds like that's what's happening. But that kind of sounds what it is, right? Like, well, you have to something has to say what these things are in order for them to mean anything, right? Otherwise, everything's just chaos, right? You have to, right? There has to be something that spoke it into existence or something like that, right? Like I'm still not entirely clear like to what extent Darth is talking about when he gets into this stuff, because it sounds like to me this idea just from the jump, right? He has merged on an ontological ultimate with an epistemological ultimate so forcefully slammed the two of them together that, at least I think that's what he's doing conceptually. I don't know if that's a philosophically possible thing, but I think that's what he's doing conceptually. In that there is this thing that exists that is responsible for absolutely everything actual in the world, including our ability to even know about anything in the world and say anything about anything in the world. But then he posits certain propositions in which the negation of what he thinks is actually the truth, which is God exists and is the creator and the necessary foundation of everything, you can affirm the negation of that and say that there is no God, which is the foundation of that. And I'm not exactly sure if it's occurred to him. Like, I don't get like how he does this, but it seems like there should be a point in his merging of these ontological and epistemological ultimates in this like necessary way. Because it seems like not only is it necessary for this thing to exist in an ontological sense in which it provides for all the stuff that exists, which includes all the stuff that we don't know that exists yet, right? But he's also epistemologically ultimate in that if he didn't exist, we wouldn't know about anything, even the stuff we claim to think we know exists, right? We would just be deceived or hallucinating or incapable of grounding anything or whatever. Like, I don't know how the rest of that plays out, how that spirals away in his imagination. But given that it seems like he's talking about the same two things, it seems to me that like, okay, then how is it possible, given this necessity, these two necessities, that the proposition that you're talking about is even possible to entertain, right? It seems like even attempting to entertain the proposition gods don't exist would automatically entail something catastrophic. But it doesn't. It doesn't demonstrate in the real world, a person can entertain it, even if it were only hypothetically. It doesn't seem to spiral into anything. And I think early preceptors were asked about this kind of stuff. Well, let's say, just for the sake of argument, that I entertain this. Let's say that you're right, and one has to take this worldview. What if you just entertain the other one, just hypothetically, just to see what would happen if you did, right? And they're like, oh, no, you can't, because if it were actually the case, you couldn't know anything, right? That's been pointed out to them by others. Like, well, no, that's not the entailment. It's not simply that you wouldn't know anything. There wouldn't be anything to know about. There would be an absence of anything. The fact that you don't know anything, that's the least of your worries, right? And then you kind of watch them get a little bit quiet, and then they just shift back to like calling you a moron or a drunk or a dunce or a delinquent or whatever, you know. So I don't see how this gets anywhere, right? This is just him sort of forcing someone to accept, like, hey, what I'm positing is an ontological ultimate, and you also have to accept that it's also an epistemological ultimate. You have to accept it that way too. And if you don't, you're a dum-dum, right? Like, it's almost like you know, my position is you are necessarily wrong because you suck.
Yeah, so like I said, I think universal dictums are just kinds of propositions.
You're not addressing the question, okay?
You make the question more clear for me.
Listen carefully. You're doing what the sophist atheists do all the time, okay? I've been dealing with atheist sophists for years, okay? I'm not interested in you giving me a little mini soliloquy about what you believe. I want you to answer the question. How is it even possible for you to ground and establish that it is the case any universal declaration?
So I'm not sure what it means to ask, how can any declaration be?
I'm going
to
to kick you from the room.
See, I don't know how Darth gets past that little display right there, right? Somebody starts to answer a question, and he interrupts to break in with the assert, I am going to do this to you. I am not going to talk to you anymore. I'm going to kick you out. I won't let you stay, right? Like, that is childish temper tantrum nonsense, right? This is why the guy never should have been allowed control over any kind of room, because it's ruined him, right? I was talking to some people who have known him from the past and said that, you know, even back as, you know, like to 2016 or so, he wasn't quite this bad, right? Like, his arguments were sometimes just as kind of tortured and kind of weird, but he wasn't quite this bad because he had to kind of play along. He didn't have his own rooms. He'd go into a G plus room hosted by somebody else. I think that's one of the reasons that he developed probably a really melodramatic reputation, was because he was constantly yelling about mod issues, kind of the same stuff that he was doing when he was on Discord a lot. He didn't run his own Discord server, which I don't know why he doesn't. He could. Then he'd have all the control that he wanted, but he would go into servers run by other people, and then, well, I've talked about that before, and just sort of run them into the ground. He would just demand more and more access to it and more help, because I don't think he knew what he was doing without somebody else telling him, and bots and things that he wanted set up to auto-ban the people that he kept on a troll list and all that kind of stuff. That stuff wasn't him. He wasn't that technically savvy. He said so. That's not a dig on him. He said, no, you know, but he got that kind of help from people that helped him set up his own channel in their server and whatever. And then he wanted more and more and just kept growing. It was a little bit like Agent Smith from The Matrix. You know, just me, keeps reproducing until he just leaves the place a barren husk. So, I mean, he could just do this, right? But this has mutated his personality, I think, a little bit. And Clubhouse is kind of this perfect little place for him to be in, because he can do this. But I think that now he's isolated enough people doing his whole line in the sand thing recently, where I think, because I don't see too many people in here. I mean, I think it was 76 maybe possible, but I don't know how many people are actually down there. And he's only letting up maybe one person at a time, which, you know, probably for the best, you know, given his attitude. But nobody's going to go in there and call him on this, right, anymore. There's no point. There's no point for other Christians to go in there and like, hey, you know, that behavior that you're demonstrating right there, like, that's not only is not you know, a good Christian behavior, but it's a really good example for anybody to use as to why you maybe should just not be on social media ever, right? Because you're clearly kind of losing it. But I think he's burnt a lot of those bridges where even people like J. Robin, I mean, I think he and J. Robin could probably have a cordial conversation even on this venue. But is J. Robin is he gonna take the trouble and deal with the drama of dealing with of trying to correct Darth's behavior? No, they're gonna let him do this. You know, he's just gonna scream into this until there's nobody to scream at, and then I'll complain about Clubhouse, and I'll probably try to move on to another platform.
Persist.
I mean, that's
with these
fine.
diversionary
It's not saying that gibberish
responses. Listen
less
to me
gibberish.
carefully. Listen to me. You know my track record. You know I don't put up with sophism and bullshit responses. I don't have to agree with you when you speak. But if what comes out of your mouth is not specifically germane to the question that I've asked,
Well,
and
I
it's
think the
clear
question
to
that
me,
you asked
okay,
is
I'm going
gibberish.
to kick you if you overtalk me. Again, you are trolling in a passive-aggressive manner.
Okay.
That's what the title of the room is about. I wasn't born yesterday. Now, your verbal strategery may work on low-hanging fruit.
Strategery? Okay, so now he's getting the joke word wrong. I didn't catch that the first time I was listening to it. Maybe I didn't make it this far. Strategery. That's a different way of goofing that up. Let me point this out here. Didi has blocked so many people, he's pretty much alienated himself from all the groups having these conversations. Yeah, thanks for that, Jack. And Jack is on Clubhouse often enough, so he'd probably know. But that's what it kind of feels like here. Yeah, I would imagine that there's probably more people stopping in to maybe try to record Darth having a breakdown or having a conniption fit rather than dealing with this, or rather than talking with him. And I kind of wanted to address, because Warren asked this, he's one of the most well-known presuppositional, well, he's infamous, Warren. I don't know that he's, but well-known in the sense, like, well-known could almost be taken as, like, regarded. I don't know that he's regarded as much of an apologist, so much as he is more of a kind of an antagonist against atheists, right? There are people out there that could kind of run this kind of thing on any group and not actually have to be for it. Darth could be a great big old Poe. He could not believe in Christianity at all. In fact, people have accused him of not really being a Christian many times. Still run these kinds of arguments. And I don't think he'd be regarded as a great apologist. He'd just be regarded as somebody that goes after, rhetorically attacks people who identify as atheists or non-believers. But there was something that you were going to say. Oh, something about like going after him and not engaging with his argument, I think was something that you... Yeah, here it is. Let's see. Again, you have to see past his personality and address the actual argument. Most of you do not do this. Okay, well, I try to address as much of his argument as I can based on what I can glean from the videos that I'm watching here, but I'm not in a conversation with him. If you are in a conversation with him, it's very difficult to actually, if you have real difficulties with what he's saying, you get treated like this Piper guy. You get treated like I like that Darth likes to come out and say, well, I just get recorded having all of these nasty interactions with people, but nobody ever records all the really great conversations that I have. Well, I do. I managed to spin up a lot of content just from I've seen him have lots of conversations with lots of different people, and I haven't seen any of them really be all that productive, one way or the other. I've seen some where some interesting points get raised. I've seen him on one or two occasions acknowledge that there was something brought up that he'd have to think about and wait until later, once or twice. One of them was a question when a guy asked him, do you believe that you can only know things that are true? That seemed to give him pause. I asked him that question later on, and he acted like he had no idea where it came from. I mean, it was months apart, so maybe he didn't give it any thought. But yeah, the idea of engaging, Darth doesn't, again, the presuppositional apologetic that Darth has picked up, especially since Darth has repeated this stuff. People have done this and studied this. He has copied whole chunks of the precept argument. He has repeated verbatim from Bonson, and Bonson has stated the purpose of the presuppositional apologetic is to shut mouths. It's not a dialectic with which to encourage active participatory back and forth engagement. That's not The point of it. The point of it is to steamroll motherfuckers into Christianity. It's to scare the shit out of them. It's to invoke some kind of philosophical vertigo. It's to force them to push them into a corner where the only option they have left is some kind of radical skepticism. And then once they're there, you can offer them the fig leaf or the olive leaf of, oh, Jesus, that'll get you out of that that nauseating position that you're in right now. Right? That seems to be more of what it's built on. It's not built on an exchange of ideas. It never has been. Even the way Van Til crafted it, even some of his own writings, he talks about the fact that it's precept is unassailable. It's the perfect defense. It's the perfect defense as well as being the most powerful offense. You never need to give ground. You never need to cede a point. You are never incorrect in doing this because you're automatically starting out from a good vantage point. Bonson just made that aspect of it even more overt, and that's what Darth's running with.
It doesn't work on me. You are not answering the question. I will give you one more chance, okay, to answer the question. I don't have to agree with it, but if you give me a response, which it is clear to me, which is just simply a verbal evasion while pretending to answer the question, bye-bye, now.
That's a weird way to put it. Hey, Bon, how's it going? Good to see you. And Jack had said, FYI, I saw DD dip in and out real quick on Discord. Oh, please let it happen. I can see that. I can see Darth going back to a Discord server. Yeah.
How do you establish that it is necessarily the case, any universal declaration? By what means can you do so?
I think pretty much all declarations are going to be substantiated by argument and evidence.
Yeah, I think that's argumentative. I mean, I think that's one way of going at it, but I can see where Darth's going to just reject that. Warren, he said his argument is that it's necessary to reference the necessity of referencing God with regard to facts. Right, and the question that I'll ask you, and I've asked him and that he wouldn't answer, and I had this conversation with him on my channel when he came in, 2 years ago, was a year ago. Why is it necessary to reference God when referencing facts when facts are dependent on God? The facts themselves reference God. Why is it necessary for me to reference the necessity of God for those facts when the facts themselves are representation of the necessity of God? The fact that I don't epistemologically or consciously or verbally or whatever attest that this thing is in fact due to God has nothing to do with the state of affairs that it is. It is only there because of that God. Right? And if you ask somebody like Darth, like, okay, so it's necessary for me to reference God when referencing facts which reference God. Why? He couldn't answer that. He didn't even understand what I was talking about. That was me engaging directly with the argument, and I was engaging that argument directly with him, and he left. He was in my room, and he left. He threatened to quit. He raised up on his haunches, started to puff himself up and make, oh, I'm just going to get out of here. I'll leave. Like, oh, you came into my room. I asked him that question, and he whiffed on it because I don't think he knows. It could be the case that every fact, everything that establishes a fact, right? Is it a fact that there's the Eiffel Tower is in Paris? Yes, there's the fact, right? And then there is the state of affairs. There's Paris is in the Eiffel Tower is in Paris, right? Not only is the fact that not only is the state of affairs that Paris is that the Eiffel Tower is in Paris dependent upon God ontologically, but the fact, right? The fact that there is an Eiffel Tower in Paris is dependent upon God, right? But what doesn't make sense is me needing to acknowledge or reference God when referencing that fact. It's ontologically already built in. And the reason that I have a problem with this is because theologically this is necessary in order to establish the idea of sin. The idea that we know God, but we suppress the truth in unrighteousness. Darth is trying to force someone to think their way to salvation, which should be heretical. The only way you're going to get past this part, if he really believes this, right? This knowledge block is an effect of sin. The only way outside of that is through the grace of the Holy Spirit working on the regeneration of a person's heart. That's how most kind of mainstream Christian theology works. Darth should know this. Darth has been checked on this by Calvinists who have told him, like, look, you're kind of dabbling in some Reformed shit here because Van Til was Reformed. But you're only going up to a certain point, and then you're getting like really bent out of shape that people aren't picking the right thing. Like they're not rationally making the correct conclusion, because they're not. They're assholes or idiots and fools and dunces. And then they deserve all the abuse that Darth can heap on them. But Darth has completely negated the necessity of grace. So not only is he screwing up philosophy, he's screwing up theology.
Okay. You have 10 seconds to answer the question. That was the last dodge.
So, in what way did that
sophistry
not
you're
answer the question?
Okay, goodbye. Goodbye.
Okay, see ya.
Yeah, bye. You see, there's two kinds of atheist sophists and trolls. Some are blatant in that they're overtly obnoxious. Then we have the atheist trolls.
The question is, why do people want to talk to him? Not a lot of people want to talk to him anymore. The real interesting question is, why don't Christians want to talk to him? Warren, you're in better favor over on Clubhouse in probably more rooms than I am. Why don't you go? You could ask J. Robin privately. I mean, I wouldn't put him in a position where he has to say this on a public room, but you could always DM him and ask him, does he really want to talk to Darth? Right? I bet J. Robin no longer cares. My guess is J. Robin is willing to talk to Darth. Sure, he's a fellow brother in Christ, and I'd be willing to talk to him. But if Darth wants to be dramatic and spread a lot of stuff, no, he can miss me with that. That's what I bet he'd say. I bet that's where a lot of his fellow Christians are. He's alienating Christians at a rate. I mean, like at first he goes in there and picks fights with. I mean, that's his thing, right? He's going to be the guy to go in and avenge Christians, avenge them by attacking every atheist that he can find. But in doing so, he usually ends up making enemies out of Christians too, right? Or at the very least, they end up becoming very, very jaded with even dealing with them, right? Because all Darth wants to do is perform. He wants to go after people. He wants to be on the attack. It's always kill, 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 beat, beat, beat. He's got to keep winning, right? So that they don't. There's nothing to really do after a certain point, right? And if he wraps them into the drama, like I drew a line in the sand. There's certain people I don't want you talking about. Like they just no. They don't have to. So the question isn't, why do people want to talk to him? I don't think the majority of people, a lot of people that have talked to him in the past don't want to talk. Like, I don't really care to talk to him. I have talked to him. He quits. He leaves conversations in a huff. There's no point in talking to somebody like that. He's a spoiled brat. At 61 years old, he still stomps away from conversations. He doesn't think he can, quote unquote, win. The man is just a child growing old.
Who respond in a deceitful, passive-aggressive manner by not transparently answering the question. Now, for everyone in the room, you were not here when he first came in. Okay? Now, he likes to present himself as an intelligent atheist. So I asked him a direct question. Why are you an atheist? Okay? You know what his response was? Just to verbalize a definition of atheism. Okay? Oh, I'm an atheist because I don't believe in any gods. That doesn't tell me why you're an atheist. You just gave me the definition of an atheist.
He's the fact that he's like got to explain this. This is part of his blow-by-blow account back to Derek, right? I don't think I've ever seen him get this petty with this before. This is small. Like, oh, you're not giving me the right one. Yeah, he was. You asked the wrong question. He even goofed it up at the beginning. I didn't point it out before, but after he takes Piper through that, and he's like, I want you to give. He basically asks him for an argument. What's Piper's argument for the non-existence of God? Well, if that's what you're like. I don't know how many times I have to bring up this criticism. I know I'm not the only one who's brought it up. I think people have brought it up to him in Clubhouse too. If that's what you want to know, ask for that up front. Stop this fucking around, right? Don't do this. Oh, well, why are you an atheist? Or I'm like, well, has it ever occurred to you? Like, it's not, well, I take it to mean, right? He was just making fun of somebody for using language like that. He uses language like that fucking all the time, right? He's constantly tiptoeing around this stuff or doing weird dances around it, and then it's like he forgot the steps himself. Like, if you don't want them to give an answer, like, for years it was, why are you an atheist, right? And people would be like, well, because I lack belief in a God. And, aha! And then it was an hour and a half long of him haranguing somebody about lacktheism isn't a thing, right? And all that kind of stuff. Which, fair enough, right? If you're going to get into the philosophical definition of what an atheist is a person who accepts the proposition that there is no God, right? A theist is somebody who accepts the proposition that there is a God. Okay. Binary, two choices, fight, right? That's kind of going to be kind of how philosophy works, right? He wanted to reject the kind of psychological definition. I'm not convinced that a God's real, therefore I'm an atheist, in the kind of colloquial, psychological, casual sense. Not spiritually inclined. Okay. That's all he had to do. That one could have been brushed aside, but he harangued people and abused people forever with that shit, right? Now he gets a guy in here who gets that thing exactly right out of the gate. Why are you an atheist? I'm an atheist because I don't think God's real. I don't think God exists. Okay. Then you follow that up with, okay, what's your justification for that? Your belief is that there is no God. What are your justifications for that? What are your reasons for believing that? That's the follow-up question. That's all Darth had to do, was follow that up, right? And that would have been a natural flow of a conversation. But he couldn't. He had to step on his own dick, apparently.
And he was almost incredulous when I confronted him the fact that was not a substantive response. All he did was giving me a definition of atheism, not the basis why atheism is true. And then the rest of the interaction, which some of you heard, he just kept on giving me sophist, evasive responses. Okay? Like, oh, I don't know quite what you mean by that. Oh, well, I take it to mean blah, blah, blah. How many times did you hear me ask him, how do you establish that it is the case, any universal declaration? And he kept on dodging.
Creepy. Dodging. Did the downers kick in, Darth? What's going on there? Slap yourself away. Get some caffeine in you. Warren, it's not a claim, it's an argument, you just don't like it. You're right, I don't like the argument, right? But if the argument is essentially being based on, in order for intelligibility to be a thing, God must exist, there is intelligibility, therefore God exists, right? Valid argument. Do you think the validity of an argument makes it sound and therefore makes it the state of affairs, makes it real? That's the real question. That's what I would ask some of these guys, right? Because it's a valid inference rule, right? But the problem is that just because it's valid doesn't mean it's sound, right? In order for it to be sound, the premises have to be true. So you have to figure out how you're going to determine, especially the first one, right? Intelligibility being dependent upon the unembodied mind, right, of an omnipotent, omniscient, omnibenevolent being that never deceives, that never tells a lie. Now, maybe that's wrapped up in the omnibenevolent thing, but I've tried doing that, and Christians have gotten after me for it. So I never do that anymore. But it has to be, that's the big claim, right? If you're going to have intelligibility in a universe, this thing must exist, right? We've got intelligibility, therefore this thing exists. Cool. Valid argument. It's in a sound structure. Now, what the hell are you going to do about those premises? Are any of those premises true? That's the argument. That's where the next phase of it goes, and that's where things usually quit. If a Christian's trying to say, "Hey, I've got this argument, and now this argument is evidence and proof, and it's sound, therefore it's the truth," all of that is bullshit, right? That's just an enormous amount of exaggeration. Having an argument and it's valid is the first step in lots and lots of work. Because at the end of the day, you do have something there that's constructed valid, that's fine, but you still don't really have a demonstration that intelligibility requires the existence of a disembodied mind or an unembodied mind, whatever, that is omnipotent, omniscient, omnibenevolent, never deceives. That's a hell of a chore. So, yes, I don't like the argument because I don't think the argument really goes anywhere. But if that's the argument, if that's kind of the core syllogism to it, I don't think it's invalid. But I don't think it's sound either.
Sophistry in a deceptive way. It's like, and he can't not.
Sophistry, I think, is defined as deceptive, isn't it? Using deceitful tactics. I mean, I think that's kind of engaging in a debate using intentionally deceitful or and trickery. So it's kind of weird. I'm like, it's sophistry in a deceitful way.
Know what you're talking about, Darth, because he's been in rooms where we talk, and he was in a.
Of course, I've dealt with him before. He's one of the sophists. Okay?
Man.
He is clearly a sophist, and he's purposely giving evasive responses while pretending to give a germane answer to the question, and he knew it wasn't.
Yeah, because it's like facts. What is a fact?
Yeah.
And then he'll turn out and say that's a fact. But
And
what
you know
is
what?
it?
I warned him over and over and again before some of you were even in the room, multiple times before some of you were here, and even after you were here, I warned him over and over again, stop with the evasive responses that are a pretense that you're answering the question when you're really not.
Trust me, Darth knows your answers are no good, right? Like, you tried to answer his questions, but take his word for it. You're not getting anywhere near to the point, right? Like when he said, "Are you an atheist?" and Piper got it exactly right, at least kind of initially. Like, now, if Darth was asking, "What motivated you to be an atheist?" right? That'd be a trickier question, and that would actually be an interesting conversational question, because in my case, I don't think I was motivated to become an atheist, right? I started reading different things. I started reading a lot of things about Christianity, and then I started reading things that were on the other side of the opinion, things from guys like Christopher Hitchens and stuff like that, comparing and contrasting things, comparing and contrasting different philosophical and political ideologies, and found myself becoming convinced of different ideas across the board, right? Just did a lot of reading, right? And found myself reaching the conclusion that I don't believe in God. But I wasn't motivated to join atheism like a club. That was not a thing. I did not, like, ooh, those guys are cool. I want a tattoo and a t-shirt and, to join their annual, bike rally or something like that. That had nothing to do with it, so. Okay. Intelligibility requires the Christian God. Claim number 1. We have intelligibility, therefore 3. God exists. Okay, that's not really how you would. Okay. That's P, Q, P. Yeah, okay, kind of. It's a little rough, but yeah, fine. Right. Let's be as charitable as possible, right? Intelligibility, in order for there to be intelligibility, there has to be a God. Now, you're going out on a limb. I don't know that Darth gets this bold and says it's the Christian God, right? He usually does that afterward. Because usually what he wants somebody to just assent to is their belief in a God, a creator God. He doesn't actually commit to a Christian God, or at least he didn't used to, right? He actually used to get after people for that. And, we're not talking about the God of the Bible yet. We're talking about just a creator God, a God for the purposes of this argument. Okay, so if intelligibility requires a Christian God, and we have intelligibility, and therefore is a God, okay, all right, that can be a valid argument. I think if you clean that up a little bit. We know one because the Bible has revealed it. So for premise 1, evidence for premise 1 is that it's been revealed by Scripture. Why is Scripture evidence that intelligibility requires a Christian God, especially when it required intelligibility to read the book right? It also required intelligibility to write the books that communicated the information to you, right? And doesn't that kind of conflict with some of the things Paul says, or like what Christians think Paul meant when he said everyone knows God, but some suppress it in unrighteousness, right? Like you just always believed, right? Like I think there's some problems there.
You see,
Darth.
it's certainly legitimate at times to explain your point of view. I take it to mean this, or to ask for clarification, but they use it as a deception. Okay. Welcome, Joe. What would you like to say?
Hello, Darth. So I wasn't really here earlier, but what was your question to Piper?
Well, I asked him, "Why are you an atheist?" But before I
want to bring this up because this is a wilder claim. The Bible is self-attesting. I hear a lot of Christians say this term. How is something self-attesting if it's written by multiple sources, multiple people, compiled over multiple centuries, multiple different points of view? I mean, a study of the books of the Bible shows that it is a compendium of a variety of different books, genre. I say this probably once every other video. But the idea that it's self-attesting, I don't think there's such a thing as a book that is self-attesting. No book is. Then I don't understand that. I don't understand that claim. You'd have to break that down, and I don't understand that claim even theologically, other than for somebody to say, "Well, it's inspired by God. It's a direct transmission of God." I think you just end up getting into an enormous amount of trouble with the self-attesting claim, and I think the self-attesting claim is mostly the realm of kind of so-called biblicists, the people that are biblical literalists, and that's a lonely road.
asked that, I said to him, when you come up here, I said, are you willing to not troll either by being obnoxious or to engage in passive aggressive, deceptive responses? And he said, oh yeah, I will. And then what he proceeded to do was do a line after line after line of passive aggressive, deceptive, and evasive responses. So that's finally when I kicked him, because there's only so much of this that I'm going to take. I warned him. I wasn't born yesterday. Okay.
somebody was checking out Joe. Who's Joe following? What's Joe associated with? Joe, because you must subjugate yourself before God as creature. Well, I think I am subjugated to nature as a creature, right? I'm a product of nature, so I don't have I've said this before. I don't have a problem with the creator-creature distinction, or at least the creaturely definition, and the fact that I think that we are all we are dependent on a natural environment, right? Like that's part of the issue of climate change, right? If we damage our climate to a certain point, it's not that we will terminate all life or destroy the planet. We won't be able to inhabit it anymore. It will not be conducive to human existence, and we will snuff ourselves, right? Because we are dependent on nature. Subjugating myself before God, I also don't. I don't see why that seems like an anthropomorphication of this ultimate creature, this ultimate thing, right? I'm already subjugated to it, right? If my existence is ontologically dependent upon the existence of this being, and the fact that I'm even capable of being aware of my surroundings, and the fact that I'm aware of my surroundings is all dependent on this being, I'm as subjugated as one can get. I don't understand how sin works past this point. I think a lot of this philosophical wankery that's happened in Christian circles, they've kind of talked themselves right out of notions of sin and salvation and stuff. I just don't understand how you get there. I don't understand how Darth gets here, because all the hand-wringing that Darth did with that Piper guy, he didn't really even get into the God of the Bible, right? So even if Piper just said, yeah, actually, I'm not an atheist, I'm a theist. Okay, so you believe that there's a creator, an ultimate foundation. What's the ultimate foundation for your worldview? A God, a creator God. All right. Aren't we on the same page? Then Piper could just say, I reject Christianity 100%. And what's Darth do then, right? Darth does what Darth always does. He will demand that person define what their God is. Immediately start sticking it in a box. How big is it? How tall is it? How much does it bench press? All that kind of stuff. He starts asking empirical questions almost about the nature of their God. How does it work? How does it talk to you? How often does it talk to you? Does it come when it's called? Does it respond by name? Yeah, this kind of stuff.
He's 26 years old. I'm more than double his age. I make no claims to being a genius, but I'm not stupid. I know when people are being evasive with me. Okay?
I forgot to answer. I wanted. Thanks for that comment, Jack Burton. I wanted to answer. I think Gurr. I forgot to highlight it. Gurr said something. I'm here to watch how to be a good streamer, and I was going to say you need to watch somebody that's better at this than I am. Nadimos, good to see it. Thanks for showing up here. Circle jerky strategery. Yeah, that's pretty much what it is. All right. Warren, I want to address this one too. You must acknowledge God because he requires that you glorify him. Why does a perfect being require anything from me? He's a perfect being. He's so perfect, he's an immutably perfect being. There's nothing that can be added or taken away from God in any conceivable way that makes him any less perfect than he is. He is absolutely 100% fulfilled. That's an aspect of perfection. Why does he need me to glorify him? Why is he pursuing glorification? That does not seem like something a perfect being needs, wants, would crave, and would create subordinate beings to provide him. Right? If God was being presented as being something that has the capacity to do these things, but is somehow intrinsically missing something in himself and just wants to be loved or wants companionship, kind of like that, that might make sense. But that's not how God's personified, right? So that motivation contradicts with one of God's properties, one of his key properties. So,
and when they're warned several times, stop with the sophist, evasive responses. You don't have to give me an answer that I agree with. All you got to do is give an answer, whether I agree with it or not, that is not a purposeful evasion.
Okay, so I'll agree that I won't troll. So just for the record, I'm not particularly an atheist. I'm currently a seeker of truth. So
all right, bold claim, Joe. I'm a seeker of truth. I'm not an atheist. Wilberforce, has anyone actually read Van Til, literal philosophy speak, in a really uninformed and illogical community college lecture? Yeah, I have read a little bit of Van Til. I have to admit, I have not successfully made it through an entire book of Van Til. I usually have to get Van Til in in installments. And yeah, I don't think he was a good writer. And I think that his thought process was really odd. One of these days, for one of these, I need to crack one of them out and read. There was one page, I should have just highlighted the entire page. He runs through a definition of what he thinks God is, that I read it 3 times in a row. And the more I read it, the lower my lower jaw dropped, because it is staggering in the fact that he's basically grasping everything. In one page, he's attempting to basically claim God is so much stuff, it might as well be, the dust under my fingernails. That's how complete and total God is, and inescapable. It's really weird. And then doesn't understand the entailment of that. You just defined a God that basically is everything and in everything. But then he goes on to talk about it needing glorification or something like that, and it just kind of blows it up. So
I would call myself an agnostic.
Okay,
So
I don't accept your claim.
And why is that?
Why? Because my ultimate authority, which is the mind of God and how he has reveals it, contradicts your claim. So God is my...
His claim that he's a seeker of truth? Did I miss something from Joe there for a little bit? Let's
And why is that?
Why? Because full evasion.
Okay, so I'll agree that I won't troll. So just for the record, I'm not particularly an atheist. Um, I'm currently a seeker of truth, so I would call myself an agnostic.
Okay,
So are there
I
any,
don't accept your claim.
and why is that?
Why? Because my ultimate authority, which is the mind of God and how he has reveals it, contradicts your claim. So God
And
is my expert. Have you ever seen Pawn Stars?
no, I have not.
Okay, Pawn Stars is a TV show about a pawn shop in Las Vegas. People bring in all sorts of old stuff.
Of course, he's a fan of that show. Of course, that show's not even on anymore, is it? I don't. This isn't current. Come on. Using Strategery, that's like a 22-year-old SNL reference. And Daisy, he just blocked Matt Slick. Am I reading this right? Did you mean Darth Dawkins blocked Matt Slick on Clubhouse? I would be interested to know why that is. I'm not surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if he did. I've heard some of the conversations, and there's some tension there for Darth. I always got the impression that Darth was like kind of trying to be on his best behavior around Matt, but really kind of wanted to call him out for things he thought Matt was weak on. Darth blocked Matt Slick for being in James's room. Just happened. James is tired. Okay. So to Warren, I will say, why do people want to talk to Darth? Well, the longer you've been around Darth, the more likely you are to not want to talk to him. Darth only wants to talk to new people, right? He just wants to chalk up wins. Like he talks to newer people. I want to get some atheists up here, and then he gets them up here and determines that they're ultimately a troll. Checks them off the list, puts them down, gets a good read on them, what he thinks is a good read on them, and then moves on to the next. Right? That's all he's looking to do. Eventually, he'll make his way through the entire population of the planet. I think.
All the time, including antiques and memorabilia. And they will bring in experts to come in and evaluate, okay, people who have expertise in these particular areas, like with guns or Hollywood memorabilia, or experts on the Civil War, things like that. And the
Is my keyboard making a lot of noise? I'm just wondering.
expert will, basically do a general overview of what they're expecting to find, and then they'll do an analysis and say, this is not the genuine thing, or they will say, this is the real thing. Okay? Now, you have made a claim that you're a truth seeker, and you've made a claim that you're not agnostic, being that I am a Bible-believing Christian, and the mind of God, as opposed to the mind of man, is the ultimate authority. The God of the Bible says you're a liar. Okay?
Okay, so it seems that you're taking for granted the word of the Bible. So I'm wondering whether or not
And you're taking for granted that the mind of man is the ultimate authority, aren't you?
Well, the mind of man is immediate, right? How
Sir,
do I know that
listen carefully. Either the mind of God and how he reveals it will be the final court of appeal, and if not, the mind of man will be. Now,
Okay, so, but Darth treats everyone as if their own mind is the final authority, right? Because that's how he blames people. That's how he condemns people. He'll tell people that they can't. At least he used to. It used to be more common. He would tell people that autonomy, human autonomy, or autonomous human reasoning, is not real, right? And I always thought it was weird. For a long time, I thought he was a Calvinist trying to deploy that argument, because for Calvinists, they tend to believe that there's only two influences that humans are under. They're either under the sin nature, with which they're suppressing the truth and unrighteousness, right? It has nothing to do with what they're willfully choosing to do on their own. That's their sin nature, right? We're born in sin. Or you're under the influence of the Holy Spirit, right? Where your heart is being regenerated by the Holy Spirit, and then that is what brings you to an awakening and a realization for the need of communing with God and seeking redemption and all this kind of stuff, right? But those are really the two paths, right? There's two forks in the road. That's it, right? There's no middle path. And then you get into whole issues with monergists and synergists about to what extent does your own human autonomy have to do with this kind of reconciling these choices? Is there a choice at all between staying in sin and following the Holy Spirit, or is it all just sort of is it kind of against your will in an ultimate sense, right? Especially if it's being decreed by the sovereign God, right? Darth would bring this kind of stuff up, right? Not exactly the way I put it, but he would bring up this notion that there's no such thing as autonomous human reasoning, and then condemn a person for choosing to believe, a stance that he holds to, kind of a doxastic voluntarist one, choosing to believe that there is no God, you're making the wrong choice, and you should feel bad because you did bad. Notice what he did. There's no such thing as autonomous human reasoning, but I'm going to blame you for using autonomous human reasoning for choosing to believe that God doesn't exist. That is a central contradiction to Darth's entire philosophy and all of his theology, one that he has never reconciled with anyone. If you get anywhere close, he will freak out and kick you and ban you. Right? It's never made any sense to me. Just like, the necessity of referencing facts when you reference the facts that are referenced by, whatever, that whole circular thing, right? That's never made any sense to me either, but that one right there is pretty obviously key. There's no such thing as autonomous human reasoning, but Darth condemns people for choosing to believe things, which is something that you have to use autonomous human reasoning for. So, yeah, big swing and a miss.
Do you accept that dichotomy?
Could you repeat that?
Either the mind of God will be deemed to be the ultimate authority.
This will be good. Nadimus, thank you very much for that super chat. Very generous. Defeaters for intelligibility. We're listening to Darth talk. Jefferson's Magic. I mean, that's a big one. Thank you again for that super chat. Okay, what's he saying here? How did he put this?
And how he mind of God dichotomy.
Could you repeat that?
Either the mind of God will be deemed to be the ultimate authority and how he reveals it, or the mind of man will be deemed to be the ultimate authority.
Well, this dichotomy only seems to hold meaning when we accept, or rather presuppose, the existence of some...
What was the question that I asked you?
Well, the question is more like a trap. You're framing it in a way that...
Okay, see, now, what you're doing is precisely the very thing that I criticize. You're talking around the question. You are being evasive, okay? What was the question that I asked you?
Okay, so you told me. Actually, you wanted me to answer about a dichotomy, whether the mind of...
No, I said, what I have said, is it a true dichotomy? Do you accept and believe that it is true, that it is a true dichotomy?
Between whether or not
the mind of God and how he reveals it is the ultimate authority or not?
Well, I wouldn't know what that means unless there is some meaningful...
Do you know what the law of excluded middle is?
Well, of course, but the
Good.
law of
Now,
excluded
in the
middle
excluded middle, we have A or not A.
God. Oh, here we go. Hogtie's here. Hey, Hogtie, how's it going? I wasn't saying the old God thing about you. I was saying about Darth's excluded middle thing. I'm just getting tired. Jefferson, I just got here, so you've heard that Dee Dee blocked Matt Slick. Yes. Daisy just actually told us about that. Sounds like the only reason that he blocked Matt Slick was because Matt Slick was in a James's Tired room. So, and yes, thank you, Richard. I did see that porn troll. I think somebody got it. I'm a little bit behind on the comments. I'm trying to catch back up here. Let me see here. Okay, I'm just going to have to roll in. John Fapiano, I don't think he's listening anymore. He did have to leave. But if he does hear this, night, John Fapiano, I'm glad to have you on. Let's see. Yeah, I was way behind in the comments. All right, let's see if I can keep up with these again. And by the way, I forgot. A welcome to Lori Hayes too. Got to say hi to you. Okay, so he's getting into this excluded middle thing again. So let's see.
It's either A, which is a placeholder for a proposition, A, or not A. Do you accept that as a true dichotomy?
Well, I accept that the law of excluded middle is valid, right? But
Okay.
do you
that
really
is an
think that the
evasive
law of
response.
excluded
If
middle
you
can be
give me
used
another,
meaningfully
if you
to-
give me another evasive response, I'm going to kick you.
I don't understand how Joe was being evasive there, but all right.
You have shown a pattern of behavior that you are prevaricating. I have repeatedly asked you clear, circumspect questions. You have prevaricated a number of times. Now, do you realize, are you cognizant of the fact that the last question I asked you, you completely dodged it?
Well, I wouldn't say I dodged it. I'd rather
So you
say that.
so you are denying that you dodged my question. You're denying it?
Yeah, I'm not dodging
now,
a question.
what was the question that I asked you?
Which ones? You asked multiple.
The last one.
Last one, it
You
was
dodged.
something about
Right.
whether or not I accepted
A
it was
or
a true
not
dichotomy.
A is a true dichotomy.
Yeah, if it's just A or not A, right, as variables,
Is
then
A
sure.
or not A true dichotomy?
Yeah.
Sure, if it's just
Okay, wow.
undefined
You got a straight
variables.
answer. Now, all I have to do is plug in a value for A and it still is a true dichotomy, right?
Yeah, as long as you keep the A's consistent, because Darth has had a tendency in the past to plug in a value for A and then make not A something slightly different.
Well, that depends.
No, it doesn't
Because
depend.
if you plug
As long
in
as all I
non-existent
have to do is
objects.
plug in a value for A.
Okay, hold on.
The
So
apple is entirely red or not.
the law of
The
excluded
moon
middle
is
cannot be
made
used
of-
meaningfully
Okay,
when you
listen
talk
to me.
about non-existent
Listen to me.
objects,
I'm
Darth.
getting. Listen to me.
I don't think that's the correct. The apple is entirely red, or it isn't. I don't.
almost at the point where I'm going to kick you because you are in a passive-aggressive manner being deceitful with me. Now, listen carefully. A or not A is a true dichotomy. All I have to do is plug in a value for A, and it still remains a true dichotomy. The moon is made entirely of green cheese or not.
Oh,
That's really not a good way of doing that, but okay.
okay.
Is that a true
mistake
dichotomy?
Okay, Darth, I see what your mistake here is. You're confusing
right,
the form with the
goodbye.
context.
No, it's not.
Right.
Oh my God.
Sure,
You don't get it, Joe.
He's
Derek telling somebody that they don't get this.
God.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Color me. Yeah. Color me skeptical that Derek understood.
I kicked that little deceptive little weasel.
I don't get
Okay.
it, Joe.
I didn't kick him because he's disagreeing. He's absolutely being blatantly deceptive.
How? I don't understand how he was being deceptive. Derek, oh bless his heart, Lee. Yeah.
This is the little game that these little intellectual weasels play. Okay? It is absolutely disgusting how deceitful these people are.
You gotta.
He might have. I mean, I don't know. That's an interesting question, Repo. I don't know if Derek just like quickly muted himself and like, oh, Daddy's talking, or what. But yeah, that was kind of weird. Dee is never wrong, in his mind.
I love it, Darth, when these people just make up fallacies in their head to argue against uncontroversial matters.
What they do is this is the game that they play. Okay.
That's bullshit from Tone, right? It's not uncontroversial necessarily, right? But if you've got somebody that is attempting to especially Darth, right, where he's standing on a hill, foaming at the mouth, shouting at the heavens, "A or not A," or it's either this thing or it ain't, and that's how things work. That's a little bit clumsy, I think. And if somebody's trying to get clarification on that kind of stuff, I don't think that that's dishonest, right? Now, if they're trying to torture that out for a really long time, that's one thing. But if somebody's asking for clarification and Darth doesn't have even the smallest amount of patience to begin entertain, like, okay, maybe this person's not familiar with this concept, maybe they're not familiar with the way Darth is phrasing this concept, especially if he's trying to paraphrase something or use a novel example to try to explain it in a different way, and they're not following it, right? But he just immediately loses his shit. Like, like not everybody is going to understand this stuff right off the bat. And I really do think that this is a feature, not a glitch of Darth's entire programming, right? The way he's kind of programmed himself over the decade is that if he arms himself with enough philosophabble, as he likes to call it, because that is kind of what he's doing, right? And then he'll try to throw this at people, right? The only time, like he'll throw this at them until they sound confused, and when they sound confused and ask him for clarification, he uses that as a justification for getting rid of them, because they're obviously there to try his patience. They're obviously trolling. It's not that they don't understand what he's doing with this information that he's got, right? And in situations where, look how long it took when he was doing that goofy, like kind of affirming the consequent thing. He didn't know what that was. And it was repeated over and over and over and over. And finally he got it, right? And never acknowledged anyone's help in doing so. But once he finally got that, right? Like, the interesting thing about that is it's interesting to see that he got that and he stopped using it. Once he understood it, right? Like, he would bring it up. It would come up in conversations long enough for him to say that he never did that in the first place, right? These people were just too slow to understand Darth's whip-smart brain, and he was just 4 moves ahead of him the entire time, right? But he never really was engaging in that fallacy, even though the reason it was brought to his attention because he was blatantly engaging in that fallacy, and people were like, hey, and people much more patient than I am. I can't remember the woman's name that actually was like, no, I'm not yelling. I'm trying to explain to you. This is what it sounds like you're framing it as, and that is affirming the consequent. You're goofing up the structure. And he finally started to get it. And now all of a sudden, that particular tactic, whatever was connected with that, he doesn't seem to use that so much anymore. He's gone back to some basics. So
this is how the gears turn in their head, metaphorically speaking. Whenever somebody says something that they know that they should accept as true, they will verbalize contrarianism to that, whether or not they agree with it, because they don't want to concede to the point, because you're trying to build on that to a conclusion. Or they don't want to concede to a point because it has ramifications that they don't like one way or another. Now, when I said the moon is made entirely of green cheese or not,
I like that there's a little bit of moo in the way Darth says moon. It's interesting.
that is a true dichotomy.
Yeah.
He was arguing with me over that.
Oh my goodness. These guys are something. It's A or not A.
Okay.
The statement, yeah. No proper.
This is why I was saying that he's finding fallacies to argue against where they don't exist.
He's just that. It's called contrarianism.
It's not that. No, I don't. Contrarianism is when you disagree with something that is well established and agreed upon by a majority, not only just a majority of people. So you're not. It's not necessarily like an ad populum kind of thing, or get accused of some appealing to popularity fallacy, but also if it's something that's concluded by experts in the field. For instance, if you are a creationist, you are a contrarian, right? If you believe that the world is literally actually 6,000 years old or 10,000 years old, whatever, somewhere in that range, you are a contrarian because the established consensus view amongst the majority of experts in biological sciences, natural sciences, physics, whatever, everybody that studies those fields, interrelated and otherwise, agree that the Earth is much, much older than that, right? And young Earth creationism is loaded with problems, right? Granted, it's a packet of, bullshit. But there's a bunch of things in there, a bunch of contrarian little ideas in there that, if in order to hold on to them, you basically have to throw out lots of well-established, scientific, observed, established theory. And that's a contrarian, Darth. Darth is a contrarian. Tone is a contrarian. I think Derek Lee is also a young Earth creationist. If he is also a contrarian, right? That's just how that works. So, yeah. I always like the allegation of contrarian is the way that I hear it from like guys like Darth and Tone. It's anybody who disagrees with me is a contrarian.
Contrarianism. Contrarianism. Contrarianism.
It was a weird sound that came out of Derek, but Derek actually got to talk a little bit, and didn't get. I mean, there was that one point where it was a little confusing whether or not he muted himself quickly to let Big Daddy talk, or if Daddy hit the mute hammer. All right, well, I'm going to leave it at that. That's pretty much it for that one. I didn't ramble about this one as long as I thought I would. It's pretty good. Anyway, I think that's it for that. I might be doing a video tomorrow morning. I'm not sure. For any of you that might be interested in seeing some, I don't know if you are, but D. Roy Cruz, who's also kind of a toxic older guy with some crazy ideas. Buddy of mine, Carlton Winston, does reviews usually every Saturday morning, and occasionally Sunday morning. He's going to be doing one tomorrow, 10 a.m. Eastern. And his are usually about an hour and a half tops. He reviews his stuff. If you haven't followed it, you don't necessarily have to have a lot of context. But D-Roy he's a trip. So, that's coming up tomorrow. Not sure if I do something, it might be probably after that one. And if it gets too late, I may not. But I'm going to try to set up a few things coming up here in the next week or so if I don't get too busy. So, thank you all for showing up. Thank you for the live chat. It's always fun. Appreciate it. I forgot I was going to bring that up. He wasn't going by the name Biblical Christological. Someone's trying to find out my debate with Philip. Philip K. Amon. Let me go into. Let me see if I can find it. I'm pretty sure in my channel. I think I made it available again because I think it was on mine. Yes. It's kind of on the longer side. Yeah, it's from a year ago. If anyone's interested. There it is. That's the one from. I think I only talked to him once, but that's it. And actually, that was set up. MathPig was supposed to have a debate with him, and MathPig reached out to me. We were talking about some of the concepts that Philip was bringing up. We started talking, and then I don't know exactly what happened, but I think I ended up posting it and just running it. But I'm not sure. It might have just been mirrored on it, but I think we did it on ours. And I think MathPig mods that debate. It's been a while since I've done it, but if it's the one I'm thinking of, I kind of get to a point where I'm just sort of like badgering Philip on a point that he ignores. So, any criticism or anything about it? It's a long time ago, and I might have had a little bit of booze in me. I probably didn't actually with that one, but. Yeah, anybody's got any criticisms or anything? I have learned a few things since I've had that discussion with him, and I don't think I've seen Philip around much anymore. But he pops up every once in a while and challenges people like AJ in the chat to debates, and AJ had a discussion with him. I think around the same time I did. So AJ says MathPig did a separate debate too. Yeah, he did. I can't remember if MathPigs was before mine or not, because they'd had a conversation before, kind of casually, I think. And then I think MathPig had one later, yeah. But Philip keeps changing his username, and it wasn't whatever was in the chat. But he showed up on Answers in Atheism, which is another YouTube atheist channel. Speed of Sound is the user. He's the host. That's his channel. Well, I think the channel's Answers in Atheism. And he and Scott Duke had a conversation with Philip 6 months ago, something like that. It was a while back. Can't really remember well. So anyway, with that, I hope everybody is good. Have a great day, a great night, depending on wherever you're at. Well, and have a good weekend if I don't see you guys. Otherwise, I might see you, some of you, I might see you tomorrow morning/afternoon. But anyway, have a great one. Take care. And I will catch you all next time.